Workplace rights affect all of us, from hiring and firing to discrimination, wages, and remote work policies. But how well do we really understand our rights and responsibilities under Florida law? Professor Rhonda Reaves joins us to break down what employees and employers need to know. Thank you for joining us, Professor Reaves.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, tell us about at-will employment and what does it mean in the state of Florida?
What at-will means is that for most of us, we work without a contract. The employer has the power to fire us truly at will for any reason or no reason, as long as it's not an illegal reason. So there is a small category of protections that you still have. But generally, the thought is either party can leave at any time.
And what are the exceptions to that?
So one of the major exceptions are anti-discrimination laws. Mm-hmm. So that would be an illegal reason if they fired you for based on race or disability status or something along those lines. There are some public policy exceptions that, think about it in terms of protecting whistleblowers, like they can't retaliate against you if your speech is protected under some other statute, such as whistleblower statute. You can always, if you're lucky enough to find an employer that'll give you a definite contract that says they won't fire you unless they have cause. And then there's, tenure protections. That's another one, right? Where once part of the benefit of having tenure is that you get the just cause protection. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to only be fired for cause.
Okay. Interesting. And so now we have lots of remote and hybrid situations going on. How has that affected the practice of employment law?
I think we're all still trying to figure it out. So the problem we always have in employment law is that some of the laws we're enforcing were passed in 1938, right? Some of them were passed in the 1960s. So they're not as flexible in dealing with these problems that they never contemplated. Right. So you're seeing a lot of people trying to see, are these laws still flexible enough to address these, 21st century concerns, or do we need to pass new laws?
I had no idea they were that old. And wow.
That old.
Okay, so then what are some of the unique challenges, for example, that a small business owner might have with a remote contractor?
Yeah, small business owners especially, so there's so many laws. There's no one universal law, right? Mm-hmm. It's sort of a patchwork of state laws, federal laws that you have to be aware of. And so navigating that can be difficult, especially if, you don't have legal training or you don't have a lawyer to do that for you. Mm-hmm. But you have to be aware of the, policies, the laws that are in place to protect workers, whether it's about, getting injured on the job, whether it's workers' comp, right? Whether it's discrimination laws to make sure that you're complying. So it's, usually a good practice to have someone review your practices for you, someone, a lawyer to review those so that you can be sure. Because not every law applies to every business, right? Some of them have, only if you have this many employees does this law affect you, but it's really hard for a layperson to sort of navigate all of those possible liability issues.
Yeah, and there are so many.
There are so many.
What are some of the trends right now in employment law?
So some of the trends that you see in employment law, well, one of the most active areas is always a wage and hour, right? Because I approach employment law especially from that of the least powerful to see whether our systems are working, sort of a stress test. And so you have a lot of claims where people, for maybe just 15 minutes of time, right, where somebody told you to stay over and not record it, or come in early but don't clock in. But those 15 minutes add up, right? So you see a lot of these sort of class claims where saying this affected 1,000 workers, right? And those are always very active employment law areas. Discrimination, that's another one that, has a lot of activity. If you're talking harassment at work, if you're talking disability discrimination, you could be talking race, national origin, religious discrimination, all of those things are a lot of what employment lawyers deal with.
And so do you have any, what is your baseline that you would say to, for example, a small business owner about contracts? You know, have someone look over your independent contractor agreements, have someone look at your hybrid policies.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned the independent contractor. That's another area where there's a lot of risk because a lot of times people think that their employee is or the person is an independent contractor, but it's not based on what you think or even what the document says. It's based on how you control what they do. So there are a lot of cases of misclassification where the employer thought, well, this independent contractor, I don't have to provide them any of this stuff. And it turns out that legally they were their employees because of the way they controlled what they did. So for small businesses, there are some organizations out there, right, that help small businesses with startup things and things like that. Otherwise, you can always get referrals from the various bar associations, right, for attorneys. There's lots of ways to, you know, we always like ask a friend.
Yes.
Referrals are always one of the best ways, but it's usually, a lot of times lawyers are expensive and that makes people hesitate, but litigation is more expensive, right? If it falls apart and somebody sues, that's going to be more expensive. So it's usually worth the investment to get it right at the beginning rather than waiting until the end and hoping it doesn't fall apart.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing a bit about employment law and some of the ramifications for employers and employees. We greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Professor Reaves has helped us better understand employment law and what it means in the real world terms for workers and businesses across Florida. This insight makes a complex area of law much more accessible.